Every season of Survivor is a story. There are main characters, sidekicks, comic reliefs, and villains. A good season of Survivor tells a compelling story. It will grip you and have you rooting for someone and against someone else. You will want to watch episode after episode to see what happens next until it all finishes with a hopefully satisfying conclusion. Each story that we look at together will go through one character's journey from beginning to end, from the time that they are introduced until they inevitably get their torch snuffed or win the game. We will look at every character moment and strategic move to determine whether they were a hero or a villain and whether they were a good or bad strategist. And with that, welcome to Once Upon an Island. For reference, we will only be observing what the TV show is showing us and what story is being told through the show. No future seasons will be mentioned here, as the story and characters have no idea about what happens in those future seasons. All character moments and strategic moves are interpreted with the mindset of what the story is trying to tell us. And before we start, I want to thank you, the patrons, for making this happen. This video was chosen by them since we reached our goal of 100 patrons. If you want to watch all of this channel's content early and pick what videos I make, then consider joining them on Patreon. And with that,
39 days, 20 people, 1 survivor.
Jerri Manthey, now 38 years old, previously played on Survivor the Australian Outback and Survivor All-Stars. I do have videos about both of her appearances if you are interested in her journey to this point, as it does add a ton of context for her character and the decisions she will make this season. In her first season, she was viewed as a massive villain who would do anything to anyone to win the $1 million. She had a fling with Colby Donaldson that ultimately did her in once she made the merge, as he was painted as this ultimate perfect hero and she was poisoning him. Then in Survivor All-Stars, she did seem to reconcile with Colby.
Colby and I are having some pretty nice conversations, and I'm glad to see that there aren't any harsh residual feelings there anymore.
But not long after, she exacts her revenge on him at possibly the cost of her own game, since it helped set her up to go when Boston Rob cuts a deal with Lex to save Amber at the cost of getting Jerri out of the game before the merge.
If you can.
In fact, this story probably better serves as the epic conclusion to a trilogy of stories. Now it is 6 years and 12 seasons later, and a lot more has happened in the game of Survivor than anything as Jerri has ever done. Every one of her so-called villainous acts in her first 2 seasons really seemed quite tame in comparison at this point. She never blindsided anyone or really lied to anyone that we saw. She once accused a guy of sneaking in beef jerky and grated on others with her personality, and that's kind of it. So, will Jerri rise up to the status of being the original female villain, or have the years actually matured her to a point now that she might be a hero who will earn the jury's respect? Let's find out. Survivor Heroes vs. Villains starts off in an epic fashion as everyone flies in on helicopters, with the heroes all being dumped off at once and the villains getting their individual entrance treatment. We hear from Jerri about her past, and unlike in All-Stars, it seems like the chip is off of her shoulder and she is in a great mood.
I've been labeled things like she-devil in a blue bikini, the Wicked Witch of the West, Maneater Manthey, that was my favorite one.
Jeff then kind of puts on a pre-game tribal council, which leads to a lot of fun moments, but notably for Jerri, it has her saying that compared to a lot of players this season, she feels old.
I'm the original villainess of Survivor, and I gotta tell you, I feel like Mother Teresa right now with these people. It's on.
Tom Westman then speaks up and says that those who have not been successful in the past may switch up their strategies this season, so nothing will be predictable. This feels like the direction Jerri should go for sure, as she could have never won with how she annoyed people in her first 2 outings.
I also wouldn't assume that anybody would stick with the gameplay that they had. If it didn't work for them a previous season, I would say that they might do a 180 on this thing and spin it around, and I think that could be from either tribe.
As talks progress about who is a hero and who is a villain and why, Jeff just asks everyone straight up who doesn't think they should be considered a villain, and pretty much everyone raises their hands except Jerri, who embraces the moniker and even tells us how she picked her specific hat to represent her choice of tribe.
Except Jerri Manthey, the original Black Widow, still owning her title.
I even got a black hat for this season.
Yeah, is there a little symbolism, but her hat being black and mine being white?
Jerri is clearly having fun, and it is hard for us to not have fun with her as her joyful attitude is bursting through. They then immediately have a physical reward challenge that sees a lot of people getting hurt, Colby getting dragged by Coach of all people, and yet the villains still lose. Back at camp, Jerri has moved on from her flirtmance with Colby because now it seems like there may be something between her and the guy who just manhandled Colby. That's right, the Dragon Slayer himself, Coach.
Honestly, I'm very surprised by Coach. There's just something about him, and I don't know what it is yet. I'm definitely gonna make it a point to get to know Coach.
I know I'm stealing Coach's mantra here, but I'm going into this like a warrior.
One thing that appeals to me about Jerri is that she's a different kind of girl. That interests me because I'm a different kind of guy.
They seem to like each other, and the other villains in the camp encourage them to pursue this romance and absolutely do not want to stand in the way of what is happening here.
Are you guys playing Cupid?
Yes. You and the Dragon Slayer?
Jerri and Coach both talk, and while they have both admitted to feeling something for the other person, they know that them looking like a tight duo could be bad for the game since no one wants a repeat of Rob and Amber, especially on the next full-blown all-star season like this one.
Just by cuddling together one night, we created a whole little...
I know.
I hate feeling alone out here.
No, you're not alone.
It's the worst feeling in the world.
It was a Dragon Slayer, man. Don't even worry about that.
At the immunity challenge, the villains win, and ultimately no strategic decisions have to be made yet by Jerri. The first impression of Jerri Manthey 3.0 is positive. She looks to be much more relaxed, sure of herself, and seemingly has nothing to prove. This is a mature Jerri. Her flirtations with Coach is reminiscent of her past flirtations with Colby. She does seem to be allied closely with the Dragon Slayer, but otherwise it isn't clear who else she is with, though it does seem fair to say that she is not annoying anyone like she has in the past, so she could easily fly under the radar in this group of big personalities. Episode 2 begins, and so has the rain. Jerri is talking to Coach about people freaking out and complaining last night because of the rain and, well, their bad shelter. While it is not a big deal that she observes this, it is a funny callback to All Stars when she would complain about the shelter and annoyed Mogo Mogo in the process.
This is rough. People are freaking out. I mean, there's a lot of complaining last night.
It's gonna get worse.
I know, and it's only day 4.
In what has to be the most obviously reenacted scene ever in the history of Survivor, Boston Rob passes out and Jerri finds him on the ground. If the bad acting doesn't give it away, then his shoes being placed perfectly next to him should. Anyways, while I'm sure he really does pass out and the cameras just didn't catch it, this is one of the most unintentional, hilarious scenes in all of Survivor.
Please, Rob, come on, just look at me. Your head hurts?
Yeah.
Dude, what do you want me to do?
Oh.
I saw the whole thing, and it really scared me. I mean, I don't want to see anybody get hurt.
I feel like it's getting the best of me.
Later on in the episode, it is immunity time, and once again the villains win, and back at camp, spirits are high. So high, in fact, that her and Boston Rob are now smoking and joking over some possibly inappropriate clam joke.
The elusive giant clam. Do you want to touch it?
I don't know, I'm afraid.
Come on, you can touch my clam.
Episode 3 kicks off with the others noticing just how tight-knit Jerri and Coach really are, along with Russell and Parvati. There's a lot of duos happening here. Boston Rob says it can be dangerous when a couple gets together. He would know.
Coach and Jerri are trying to do the same thing. That can be dangerous. I know, I've been there. And I know how powerful that kind of an alliance is.
The villains then lose for the first time all season, and the game is on. Parvati is back to her flirtatious, charming self that we saw in Micronesia, and seems to be getting her way, just like in Micronesia, convincing people to do things for her that are not in their best self-interest, but are in her best self-interest. And Jerri sees all of this. She just wishes she could harness this power for herself.
She's a way of just like roping people in, even when they don't want anything to do with her. I want to find out how to bottle that up and use it in my real life because it's pretty powerful stuff.
Parvati and Danielle want Randy gone since they think he is weak, and factually he is in the challenges. Jerri says everyone there has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. Parvati then asks Jerri, hey, name a name if you don't want Randy to go, huh? Name someone. And she says she doesn't even know what's going on right now, essentially resisting Parvati, who has backed her into a corner for the sake of just resisting her. While the will to fight is good, there's almost no reason to not not agree to vote out Randy.
Well, if you're gonna say not Randy, then you have to say someone else.
I don't have to say.
Why not?
Because I don't know. That girl, she thinks that she can make people do whatever she wants, and people are, but I'm not. I am not.
We then get a hilarious back-to-back set of confessionals where Jerri tells us that straight up, she wants to punch Parvati in the face. She just wants to knock her out.
Every time I'm around here, I just want to punch her in the face. That's all I can think about is just taking her down. Well, I'll tell you what.
Parvati then tells us that she thinks Jerri is fake and a bitter old cougar.
Jerri's annoying. I mean, she is the fakest fakey McGee I've ever met. She's just like a bitter old cougar.
Despite this being all villainous from everyone involved, it is hilarious as Jerri used to be the flirty one on the show, but now Parvati has taken that crown and has been a lot more successful with it, to be fair. At Tribal Council, there are talks about the villain shelter, with the talks of it possibly being one of the worst ever, and Jerri then corrects them that, no, I think the underground shelter I lived in on All Stars is much, much worse.
In fact, why do you think we have the worst shelter in Survivor history?
It's not the worst shelter in Survivor history. I was in that one, actually.
Randy is then voted out unanimously.
Randy, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 4 is super quiet for Jerri as the villains win reward and immunity, and she receives no significant storytelling moments whatsoever. So we move on to episode 5, where the villains have a clue to the hidden immunity idol and everyone knows it. It gets read out loud and everyone hears it. It has been made public that anyone who goes and looks for this idol will be marked.
Because whoever gets it is marked.
What do you mean, Mark?
If you get it, we're going to write your name down so that we force you to use it.
So, while the entire tribe, including Jerri, is doing Coach Chi together and building those important social bonds, Russell Hantz ignores them all and goes to look for the idol himself, by himself, marking himself. Which is just good on Jerri to not be the person doing that.
While they meditating, getting ready for the challenge, I guess that's what they were meditating for. I'm looking for the hidden immunity idol.
It is now time for the reward challenge, and it is Schmergen Brawl. You would think the issues this presented in Samoa would have had this challenge canceled, but nope, here we are. While playing Schmergen Brawl, Jerri takes a massive hit from Rupert and just brushes it off like a boss.
Like I meant to do.
Whatever, dude, whatever.
Fine.
Jerri then goes on to nail the killer shot and win reward for the entire villains tribe. Part of that reward is being able to eat as much chocolate as humanly possible, and Jerri accomplishes that and feels quite sick, which is a funny contrast to her time in the Australian outback when she equated chocolate to sex and just wanted to squirt it all over some hot dude's bod, meaning Colby at the time.
I have never eaten so much chocolate in one sitting in my entire life. Okay, I must agree this is obscene. I'm like in a mix of chocolate euphoria and sickness.
The villains go on to win immunity, and in episode 6, both tribes have to go to tribal. The numbers and what should happen seem obvious. Russell, Parvati, and Danielle are the smaller 3-person alliance, whereas everyone else, including Jerri, are in the larger 6-person alliance. It's basic math. They all agree to split the vote in case an idol gets played, so it's a 3-3-3 vote.
Just realized I realized that Parvati can vote Russell.
No, we need to split the vote. If we vote 3 and 3, and there's a tie, then there's a revote. You understand? We can't lose. You can't lose that way. This other way, it's too risky.
But Tyson screws this up by not voting for who he was supposed to and votes for Parvati instead. This gets him voted out 3-2 since an idol is played for Parvati.
Tyson, tribe has spoken.
As mentioned before, during that tribal, Russell played an idol to save Parvati, and in episode 7, Jerri talks to Russell, Parvati, and Danielle, who are working on roping her into their alliance. While talking to them, she is pondering the idea of joining them since she knows Boston Rob would never play an idol to save her like Russell just did for Parvati. While doing so, she mentions that she kind of has a fear of commitment, and maybe that's why she's single.
I guess maybe I have fears of commitment. Maybe that's why I've been single for 3 years.
We then learn that Jerri doesn't let things go very easily, and she still harbors resentment towards those who have hurt her in the past, which influences a lot of her decisions. And while opening up about this deep dark place inside of her, Parvati calls her crazy.
She's like, people have hurt my feelings in the past, and I've just not gotten over that for 38 years. Listen, crazy pants.
However, Parvati then offers her a final 4 deal with her, Danielle, and Russell.
And I will give you my word that I will take you to the floor.
How can you guarantee that? I don't understand.
I did it for the girls in Micronesia.
Russell then talks to Jerri and Coach separately and offers them a different final 3 deal, which seems great, and obviously this is better than a final 4 deal. However, this means absolutely nothing since Russell has been doing this to pretty much everyone in the game except for Boston Rob and Sandra.
You and Jerri I want to take to the top 3. That's what I want. That's what, from the bottom of my heart, that's what I want.
Jerri seems to be swayed by the offer though and makes a plea to Coach to join her. She doesn't trust Boston Rob because he screwed her over in All-Stars, which is fair. Coach has been in love with Boston Rob all game and doesn't want to betray him, so she calls Coach naive and sees her path to the end being with Russell, not with Rob. She says Coach just wants to be the good guy, but you can't be the good guy all the time and win this game. You have to make those hard decisions.
He's almost dead set against manipulating anybody. He wants to be the good guy to everyone, and you can't. You can't be the good guy to everyone and win this game.
The villains then lose the immunity challenge, and this is a huge turning point of the season, and it's all up to Jerri. She is caught between 2 warring factions, one led by Russell Hantz, who she just met and learned about on this season, and Boston Rob, who she has a long storied history with, which the last time they played together ended with him screwing her game over to help her former ally from the Australian Outback, and now Boston Rob's wife, win $1 million. It all comes to a head as Russell, Danielle, and Parvati agree to vote for Boston Rob, and Boston Rob then talks to Jerri, and he susses out that he is being targeted and says she can trust him. You can always trust someone who has their back against the wall.
I mean, I would love to just go, hey Rob, I trust you 100%. I can't.
But you can trust me in this situation because you can always trust somebody when their backs are against the wall.
But this is not true at all, and Jerri should definitely know this out of all people, as the last time Boston Rob had his back up against the wall in Survivor, he made a deal with Lex to vote out Jerri and save Amber, aka screwing over Jerri, and if you know the story, screwing over Lex as well. Jerri is having a moral conundrum though, and talks to Coach, who she tells that she doesn't feel like she's being a very good villain.
I'm not a good villain.
Not a good what?
I'm not a good villain.
But this is a big moment for her, as it was her who earlier said she wanted to deck Parvati in the face, and then said Coach was naive for thinking he would never have to be the bad guy and still win. She now needs to be the bad guy though, and turn on Boston Rob, and fully embrace her villainous role to further her game. It comes down to this: tribal council. Will she pull off the flip and end Rob's game and align herself with people who actively make moves to help her get further? Or will she stay with the devil she knows in Rob to vote out Russell instead? She knows she's caught in the middle, and she isn't sure if this decision is the right one, but she believes it has to be.
I'm making a choice tonight in hopes that this will be right for me in the end.
The votes are in, and in a 4-3-1 vote, Rob goes home. Jerri flipped, and Coach wussed out and threw a vote on Courtney instead of picking a side himself.
Rob, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 8 begins, and we just saw Jerri make that big move. She needed to propel the second half of her game. It was risky, but time will tell if it was the right one. Coach then pontificates, as he is known to do, and labels Russell a bully and says Jerri made a mistake going with him. This is a load of garbage though, as Coach is truly to blame for Rob going home, and probably feels bad because Rob called him a little man on his way out the door.
You're a little man.
However, Jerri says she feels bad and she misses Rob already, which shows how she still cares about him despite all that has taken place.
I didn't want to vote off Rob this early either. I really didn't. The more I thought about it, the more I was really upset about it. I miss him already. It
is now time for the reward challenge, and the villains assume this means merge based on how the note was worded, so they pack up their entire camp and bring it with them for Jeff to say,
"Everybody, drop your expectations." We are not merging.
There is no merge, and even worse is that the villains lose the reward challenge and now have to reset up their entire camp, and they didn't even get any food in the process. Jerri is annoyed by all of this, namely losing the reward and voting out Boston Rob, which is dumb since she is responsible for that decision as well.
This whole stupid thing, packing up the whole camp, just assuming there's gonna be a merge. Are you kidding me? Voting off Rob was a big mistake.
She trash talks Sandra in front of Sandra, and that just makes Sandra mad.
It's like I looked at both of them and I said, you guys, can you do this? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm standing right here. Why are you blaming me and Courtney?
I'm not blaming you,
We
Courtney.
didn't even
All
do
I'm saying
anything.
is-
The villains lose immunity, and this time Jerri doesn't vote with her final four. Instead, her, Coach, and Russell all vote for Courtney since she is super weak and a liability at challenges, but instead, Coach is blindsided by everyone else in a 4-3 vote.
Coach, tribe has spoken.
Episode 9 starts with Jerri saying she feels completely blindsided and now her options are severely limited. She knows she has to take that final 4 deal with Parvati and ride it to the end.
I'm still going to stick true to the alliance that I created with Russell, Parvati, and Danielle. But at this point, that's all I got.
At the reward challenge, it is an interesting one as there are a lot of one-on-one matchups taking place, which coincidentally has Jerri facing off against her former nemesis, Colby, and she just lets him feel the rage she has pent up inside of her.
Hey, Colby.
A rematch. Jerri Manthey, Colby Donaldson going all the way back to season 2.
Obviously a joke, clearly things are better, but what a way to top it all off than with beating Colby and being a crucial reason why her tribe wins reward.
Colby drops out. Jerri scores the first point for the villains. Jerri can step down.
However, the villains do lose immunity, and this one takes seeing it to believe it. But JT writes a letter to Russell Hantz and gifts him an idol, since the heroes are under the false assumption that the women are running the game on the villains tribe and just picking the men off one by one.
Play the idol tonight and save yourself. All the girls should be writing your name down, so act like you know you're going home.
Let's do this together. See you soon. BFF forever. XOXO, JT.
Russell then tells Parvati, Danielle, and Jerri about JT's idol that he gifted to him, and it is good that he feels close enough to Jerri to let her in on the secret.
JT gave me their idol to save me.
Shut up! Oh my god. Are you dying?
At Tribal Council, Courtney is voted out 5-1.
Courtney, tribe has spoken.
Look, bitches. See you later.
Time for you to go.
It is day 25, aka episode 10, and it finally happens.
It's a map to the heroes' camp.
Get the hell out of here. Let me see.
Do we know?
That's right, 2/3 of the way into the game and they are merging, and it is all tied up, 5 heroes versus 5 villains. While everyone discusses what their new tribe name should be, Jerri says, "Why not the all villains?" And Colby goes, "Really, Jerri?" Showing a complete annoyance for her still.
We're all villains.
All villains?
We're all villains.
Really, Jerri?
It is still hilarious though that she can push his buttons like this all these seasons later. Anyways, we are then hearing and seeing everyone talk to each other except for Parvati, except this story isn't about Parvati. So what's important here to us is the little conversation we hear from Colby and Jerri about her building a wagon from scratch and him being very impressed.
You guys had a weld last year?
Really?
I MIG weld, yeah. I built a covered wagon from scratch.
Conestoga wagon. No way.
Yep.
Even though Jerri doesn't witness this or even know that it happens, it is super crucial to everything that is going to happen as Sandra goes and rats out the real villain alliance to the heroes, letting them know that no, Russell was never the next one to go. He's actually kind of running the show with Parvati, letting them know that things are different than what they thought.
I'm the last one standing and I have to be babysat. And if they catch me talking, I'm gone next. Russell's the kingpin and Parvati's the second in command.
Armed with the knowledge that Sandra gave them, the heroes then decide to vote for Jerri because they don't think anyone will play the idol for her.
Jerri, we're voting for you tonight because if there is an immunity idol, you're the least likely person that they would give it to.
If she had been aligned with Boston Rob at this point, they would probably be right. However, Parvati plays her idol for Sandra and then plays JT's idol for Jerri in a very bold move, and this is why she chose to align with them, and it is paying off big time, literally saving her from being voted out of this game.
I would just like to increase our odds. So, Jerri, that one's for you too.
Damn it. Jerri, does not count. Jerri, does not count. Jerri does not count. Jerri does not count. Jerri does not count.
And this move not only saves Jerri from elimination, but also ironically has JT voted out 5-0 with his own idol being the cause.
JT, Travis spoken. Time for you to go.
Episode 11 sees an immunity challenge where, wait for it, Jerri gets her first ever individual immunity win in the 3 seasons she has played, and boy is she excited about this.
Jerri wins immunity by seconds over Russell.
My very first immunity.
Ever?
Ever.
Congratulations.
Because it feels good. I'm swimming in yay.
At Tribal Council, Russell is complimenting everyone on the Villains tribe except Sandra and calls Jerri the calm one, which is the first time anyone has ever called her that in any season of the show.
And Jerri, she plays a different way. She's the calm one of the whole bunch.
Amanda Kimmel is then voted out 6-3 due to Candace flipping and Sandra not flipping.
Amanda, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 12 begins and we find out that there will be 2 separate tribal councils contained within the one episode. Jerri observes that since Candace flipped a vote with the villains for Amanda, that she is someone who must be easy to flip, and that makes her a likely person to do it again, and this time not to Jerri's favor, so she needs to be voted out next.
Candace, she helped us out in that one vote, get some numbers, and now she's a threat. Someone who flips over that quickly to our side will just as easy flip-flop back.
Later on, there are talks about splitting the votes to try and get Colby out, but Jerri would rather get Candace, and no one seems to argue against her point, which shows she's fairly respected in this group.
So we have to split the votes.
It'll be the next highest amount of votes, which will be Colby.
Then at Tribal Council, Candace is voted out 5-3.
Candace, the tribe has spoken. Time for you to go.
Back at camp, Russell wants Danielle DiLorenzo gone next, mainly due to jealousy of how close Danielle has gotten to Parvati, who he kinda has a thing for. Anyways, he convinces the heroes to vote with him, which is easy. They'll vote for anyone who isn't themselves. However, that is only 2 people and he needs Jerri's vote to make this happen. Parvati and Danielle start scrambling and approach Jerri to not vote for Danielle, which she agrees to.
He's trying to vote me out. He's trying to vote her out tonight. It's Rupert. Danielle.
I'm not changing my vote. I'm voting for Rupert. Rupert needs to go.
However, right before Tribal Council, Russell scares Jerri into flipping her vote by saying if Danielle doesn't go, then Jerri is next on the hit list. He isn't clear about whose hit list or what this even means or what this means for the long run or what exactly is happening. So basically he's just throwing a lot of vague threats out there to scare Jerri into voting for Danielle, and it seems to work in his favor even though it isn't true.
I want Danielle gone tonight.
We need to get rid of Rupert. It's too early.
Bad move,
to
you're
get
gonna be
Danielle.
next. Not because of me. I'm trying to save you. You don't get rid of Danielle, you're gonna be after her.
Why did
It
you
ain't
say
me.
that?
It ain't me. I can't do nothing. You have to help me help you.
Who are
I
you
said,
talking about?
let me
Explain
get
to
this
me
as
why
far.
that's
I
even a
can't.
thing.
Jerri doesn't know exactly what's going on, but feels like she is sealing her fate as she is the deciding vote to get out Danielle, which is very risky as Parvati may feel betrayed considering what Jerri promised her earlier.
I have absolutely no idea what just happened, but with this vote, I'm sealing my fate.
14th person voted out and the 6th member of our jury. Danielle.
Episode 13 starts and Parvati is predictably like, what the heck just happened, dude? And Jerri tells her what Russell did by threatening her and scaring her.
She literally looked like he put me in your neck. He uses scare tactics.
Parvati immediately understands exactly what's happening, and since Russell's been using these tactics all game, she doesn't take it personally that Jerri did this, aka Parvati is now mad at Russell and not Jerri.
I think Russell was jealous of my relationship with Danielle, and he wanted to make sure that it was him and I that were the closest to.
The reward challenge for this episode brings with it the family visit, which makes Jerri super happy as she finally sees her sister who lives in Germany.
Here's your sister, Jennifer. Come on out, Jennifer. Came all the way from Germany to see you.
Jerri then goes on to win the challenge and has to decide which 2 people get to enjoy the reward with her. She picks Parvati and Sandra, which are solid choices, but it angers Russell to no end as he paints her as very ungrateful.
Jerri.
Parvati.
Parvati and Micah.
Sandra!
Sandra and Fernando.
I'm dragging them through the mud, both of them, in $1 million game. I hope that burger literally tastes like $1 million, because that was $1 million decision.
On the reward with Parvati and Sandra, Jerri is worried that Russell might be mad at her for this decision, and they say, who cares? What is he gonna do? Tank his game and bring 2 heroes to the final 3 so he can lose to them? They say they got her back.
I'm really afraid Russell is gonna be like, well, no, I know he's really, really mad. We got your back?
Yeah, and honestly, who cares? What can he do?
Back at camp, Rupert, aka America's sweetheart who voted for him and gave him $1 million, is up doing loud work while everyone is trying to sleep. Jerri reverts to her classic form and paints Rupert as an inconsiderate, stupid jerk. Her words, not mine.
Rupert is loud, obnoxious, selfish, and totally inconsiderate. I want to kill Rupert right now. Honestly, I want him gone more than anything in the entire universe.
Jerri makes a concentrated effort to smooth things out with Russell, and she does just that with her smile and good attitude, and really, it works like a charm on him. Maybe she does have the charm that Parvati has and doesn't fully realize it.
I talked to Jerri when she came back, and I'm back on board with Jerri. That makes me and Jerri very powerful in this game.
At Tribal Council, Rupert is voted out 4-0 since Sandra played an idol on herself to negate the 2 votes she was going to receive.
Rupert, the tribe has spoken. Time for you to go.
It is finale time. It's Jerri versus Russell versus Parvati versus Sandra versus Colby. Can she pull off the improbable win and beat her former nemesis while also conquering the game's biggest villains? The finale starts with Russell telling us that his final 3, his perfect final 3 that is with Sandra and Jerri because he thinks neither of them played the game and they're both just goats, which is great news for her.
The perfect scenario for me to win is me, Sandra, and Jerri in the top, because Sandra didn't play the game at all and Jerri didn't play the game at all.
Jerri, Russell, and Colby want Parvati to go next, but she wins immunity, saving her for one more tribal council and marking Colby as the next to go.
Once again, Parvati escapes her elimination vote. I mean, it's unbelievable how this game works sometimes. It's not like it's the end of the world. We still have one more person that we can get rid of, that being Colby.
Back at camp, Colby gives a surrender speech where he says, hey, no sweat guys, I know I'm going next, so let's just chillax and enjoy the rest of the day without scrambling. He then hugs everyone, and right as he goes to hug Jerri, the show cuts it off despite showing him hug everyone else, but we can't see him hug Jerri, the person who he has 3 seasons of history with now.
I really needed that one. So we came back into camp, I gathered all the villains, and I gave them my...
At Tribal Council, Colby is then voted out 4-1, leaving Jerri only 1 tribal from reaching the end.
Colby, tribe has spoken.
Back at camp, Russell and Jerri talk one-on-one, and they both determine that they have to vote out Parvati, as she is a massive jury threat who has a lot of friends over there, and she's made a lot of big moves, and she's won a lot of individual immunity. So we just need to stop her from winning individual immunity this one time, and guaranteed they can make the final 3.
We have to win, Russell.
We win.
We have to win.
Us winning is a shot for me and you to win $1 million.
Yep.
Russell starts bad-mouthing Parvati, and Jerri takes this opportunity to butter up Russell and say, you are so right, Russell. You ran the show, and Parvati was following you the whole time.
They all think she's some big strategic player, which she's not.
Not this game, she wasn't. No. She was tucked under your wing the whole time.
The final 4 then do a classic Fallen Comrades trek, where they look at the torches of those who have been voted out of the game and reflect on them. Jerri pays a nice and fun homage to Coach.
He was my partner in crime there for a little while, and we had some really good talks. I can pay homage to you, Coach.
Then when they reach Colby, she has nothing but kind words to say about her former nemesis.
Colby, my favorite cowboy.
Oh, cowboy.
My outback comrade.
At the immunity challenge, it is a tight one as it comes down to the wire between Parvati, Jerri, and Russell. However, Russell ultimately wins it by inches over Jerri, but Parvati doesn't get it, and that was the goal.
Russell hits the post!
Oh, man!
Russell wins immunity!
Back at camp, the game plan is still on as Russell tells Jerri that he is taking her to final 3 with Sandra. Great news.
Ready to go to final 3?
Absolutely. Terribly good.
But then not moments later, he tells Parvati the exact same thing about him taking Parvati and Sandra.
Sandra with us.
You want her with us?
Yep.
It seems like Sandra's the only one who's definitely going at this point, which is very confusing as to why he would do this, but also to figure out who he's being truthful to as he later switches back to Jerri and Sandra.
Best option for me is to take Jerri and Sandra. And that would be the best strategic move for me.
Your best strategic move?
Would be Jerri and Sandy.
It is a mess trying to figure out where his head is at right now. Something key is revealed in all these talks of who Russell should take to the end, as he tells us that he thinks if Jerri's on the jury, then she will undoubtedly vote for him, and he thinks that if he votes out Parvati, he doesn't think he's going to get her vote, or if he does, it's very unlikely.
Right now I'm on the fence because if I send Jerri home, I'll get her vote. If I send Parvati home, I don't know if I will get her vote.
At Tribal Council, Jerri makes her case that Parvati is a major threat. If she goes to the end, she is going to get votes. She's been kicking butt and has a lot of friends over there.
Parvati's a huge threat. You know, that's the scary thing, so that's kind of the case I push. And she's been kicking butt. And she's got a lot of friends over there. And it's, you know, it's no secret.
However, the allure of possibly getting Jerri's guaranteed vote is too much, as she is voted out 3-1.
Jerri, drop the sport.
As a side note, Jerri's exit confessional has her saying she will vote for Russell, but he blows Final Tribal so hard that she flips her vote to Parvati instead. So let's break this down. How was Jerri Manthey as a character? This is easily the least divisive Jerri has ever been, and while it doesn't make for the most entertaining character, it does make her overall story over the course of every season she's been on that much more satisfying when you consider what all happened to her in her previous 2 seasons and how much more mature she is here. This version of Jerri does not annoy people, and even when making big moves to end their games, no one seems to be mad at her. Her story would have been better had not so much been cut from her reunion with Colby, but that is not any fault of her own. She was the empathetic character we didn't know she would be going into this season, but we are grateful she turned out to be by the end. Out of 23 character moments shown on the show, 16 were heroic and 7 were villainous, making Jerri Manthey a hero on Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. Now, how is Jerri Manthey as a strategist? Aside from wanting to deck Parvati in the face, this may be the most perfect version of Jerri we have ever seen on the show. Her social game was impeccable, she made the big moves when the time was right, and while she wasn't in the numbers all the time, she did figure out how to get back in them immediately when it happened. It was never really at risk to go home, except when the heroes thought that she would be an easy target, and it turned out she was not, because this was not the same Jerri from All Stars. Her game ultimately came down to making Russell feel too good, as it turned out, as he felt he had her vote in the bag, and how was she supposed to know to communicate with him that this wasn't the case? She was one stroke of luck from going to Final Tribal and potentially winning it all. Out of 43 strategic moments shown on the show, 30 were smart and 13 were dumb, making Jerri Manthey a smart strategist on Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. Thanks for watching. If you like the content you see here, then please consider supporting me and this channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes all this possible, so thank you, and thank you for watching.